IMF and what you as a Ghanaian should understand about it. But in the meantime, Deputy Minister of Finance, Mona Korte, says Ghana's program with the International Monetary Fund would come with some financial assistance. Government is set to open talks. In fact, government has opened talks with officials of the fund on how they can help stabilize the economy of the country.
There will be a kickoff with respect to the data gathering that the IMF team will come to do. We've started putting data together. So they will start looking at the data. They'll be speaking to a few people. We are going into a fund program, and the data that we give and the discussions that we have will help to fashion out exactly what the program will look like. But the program will surely help us in terms of our balance of payment deficit, and it will surely help us in terms of fiscal discipline so that we can get back on track in terms of achieving some of the ratios.
Meanwhile, the Trades Union Congress here in Ghana says it will not accept any IMF initiative not in line with the homegrown measures adopted at the St. Forum.
Government invited all of us to Senche to look at the economic direction. So many conclusions were reached at Senche. So I believe now government has its own assessment of what the economic direction should be. So we expect that even in the course of looking for whatever assistance that they want from IMF. So we're looking forward to the kind of engagement that would not repeat the problems we've had over the years with IMF's intervention in our economy. Government should be firm because they know what the IMF for in the past, and even though they'll be throwing people out of jobs, they still did not find solutions to their numerous problems. So we're hoping that this negotiation will be different from what we did, and we'll definitely resist anything that will come to worsen our plight. We are told that they are going there with their own program, so we're looking forward to the kind of engagement that would not repeat the problems we've had over the years with IMF's intervention in our economy.
Now, stay with me here on News Desk. Since negotiations were set to begin, some concerns have been raised about Ghana's posture going into negotiations with the IMF. We've asked what the weight of Ghana could be, or what Ghana's negotiation weight would be going into talks with the IMF. What sort of consequences could it have on the economy, positive or negative? How can we brace ourselves for the kind of bailout the IMF is going to give us, now that Mona Korte, Deputy Finance Minister, told us that indeed it is not just homegrown policies that the IMF will be working with Ghana to put to work, but it indeed would have some monetary or financial help coming from the IMF as well. So you want to stay on for the New Patriotic Party is warned that the deteriorated state of the economy, as a result of which the government is entering into negotiations with the International Monetary Fund, will inflict further difficulties on Ghanaians. It said on the basis of the government's reported economic data, it was clear that the country's negotiators were severely handicapped. It recalled that in February this year, an IMF mission visited Ghana and subsequently presented preliminary findings on what the fund thought ought to be done to revive the ailing economy. But the government dismissed those suggestions by the fund. Let's delve into this matter. You and I need some understanding on this. In 10 days, the first phase of the talks would end, and we should understand exactly what we are entering into. Gilbert Ibrahim is an economist who's joined me over the telephone. Gilbert, thanks for joining me here.
Thank you, my sister.
Let's look at Ghana as a partner in the talks with the IMF. The fact that we have the economy at the moment is not in shape. How does that affect the weight with which we go into talks with the IMF?
Now, taking an economy, you are looking at it, the economy is not in shape. Actually, there are challenges and then in the economy, obviously. And the core one is the volatility and instability at the macro level, and specifically within the foreign exchange community. Now, when you look at those things, usually the donor partners, especially IMF, they have cut out rules mostly. It's to ensure stability. Then the other packages and domestic policies. When you achieve that stability, then we move on to growth, development, and impacting the welfare of the people. Yeah, over the period, quite some time now, we've been grappling with a volatile situation regarding the city. It has not developed to a crisis.
So Gilbert, with that as the premise, do we have, are we weakened? Let me put it that way. Even as we enter talks with the IMF, such that we can't negotiate as well as we would wish to.
Yeah, obviously we will negotiate, and when you are going to IMF, remember this, that the Bretton Woods institutions do not impose. You would it needs, their funds are needs driven, and you discover a need, you would express your need, then you express the areas that you know the challenges are, which they would have to follow up to confirm. Then you look at how the way forward, and the principles or policies can be customized to meet the unique issues of your local economy. They will not just get one straight jacket for all nations for their bailout. No, they will look at your local policies, your local initiatives and strengths. Then they build it out for you. Yes, there are some conditionalities, but then you still can negotiate. And with this particular one,
we still can negotiate the conditionalities.
Yeah, some conditionality can be negotiated and they will be waived, because when the real issues.
And so the concern has been, as a country, do we have the capacity, as it is now, to be able to negotiate favorably on those conditionalities?
Yeah, we have. Remember, the IMF respects Ghana as a sovereign state. That alone gives us the capacity to go and sit and negotiate. And they respect that. It's a win-win matter. But when they are helping, when they're giving a bailout, they also want to see returns, so that other countries, it will look attractive enough for other countries who also suffer from it, can also assess it and recover the situation. They are not just coming to just give it to you by take it. No. We have the capacity too. And where we have reached as a nation, if we want to count our blessings, we have capacity. Look at the oil sector with all the challenges and then some other potential. Remember, they look at the potential of the country in the future. The potential is huge, and everybody on the net on earth is aware of that. But how we package it is the challenge. And if I follow through over the discussion from the side of government, I heard that they are not just going for financial package.
We'll get into those discussions.
Okay.
Joining our conversation now is Dr. Anthony Akutose. Indeed, Dr. Akutose addressed a press conference yesterday. Dr. Akutose, thank you very much for your time.
Yes.
So which is it? Are we for the IMF deal or not?
Am I what?
Are we in favor of this deal with the IMF or not?
But there's no deal yet.
Absolutely. The talks with the IMF.
And we have not said that government should not go. All we said was, what is the state of the economy and what are the implications for the negotiations? We don't know how the negotiations will go, but Ghanaians must know what might happen given our situation. So all we did was put out factual evidence that the government itself has put out, but most Ghanaians may not know of them and the implications.
And the need for this discussion this morning. Let's look at the implications as it is that we enter the talks right now. What are some of the implications that you foresee?
For example, Ghanaians should know that under the MCC agreement, that government has agreed to do quarterly adjustment of electricity tariffs. Therefore, electricity tariffs may go up every quarter. And that has implications for prices in Ghana and for you and I, for consumers. That is a factual statement. For example, government says it wants to provide, it doesn't want to provide subsidies on petroleum. Has that been budgeted for? And if so, how much is it? Remember, from the budget statement, it was 50 million. Then later on, government revised it to 618 million. Is it in the budget? And if not, where is government going to find the money to pay it? Because all it does is that it widens the deficit. And the IMF is seeking to narrow it, not widen the deficit. So if you want to give subsidies, they will not protest. All they'll say is, please tell us how you are going to pay for it. So how do you pay for it? Are you going to raise more taxes? These are the issues we are bringing into the domain.
I see. Let's start off with the MCC2. What's the relationship with the IMF talks and the MCC2?
The MCC, for example, has a condition that says that before MCC money can be brought to Ghana, the government must have a plan to pay all it owes ECG and NETCO by a certain time. That involves government spending more money. I'm told that that amount is between $300 to $500 million. So the obvious question is, where is government going to find the money if it has not already programmed for it? If it spends the money, it is likely to widen the deficit larger than is predicted. So how does the government find that kind of money? That will have implications for the negotiations. So these are the issues we are raising that if people are not aware, they ought to be aware, because it is not a free lunch. IMF will not give its money because it loves Ghana. It will give its money with the expectation that the money, Ghana will do what it says it will do.
Doc, you also raised the issue of job losses. How is that?
Yes. The government has already, in the April 14 letter to the IMF, has given an indication that it plans to downsize the civil service. Downsize means what? You will reduce the number of government employees. And so, the question is, how many employees and during what period? The IMF will say, give us the specific timelines and the specific numbers. You can't just say, we'll do it later. No. They want to know what is involved.
But
so that's job loss.
So Doc, if these are conditions that could come with the deal or in the course of the talks, is there no way Ghana as a country could negotiate on them?
Could do what?
Could negotiate these consequences or conditions that...
How do you negotiate? Yeah, you can negotiate, but you yourself said that you are going to do it. So they are holding you to your word. There's nothing wrong with that. You yourself said that you want to do automatic adjustment. They'll say, okay, we will hold it to your word. That is the negotiation.
Doc, I'm going to have you hold the line. Gilbert Ibrahim is an economist who joined our conversation. Gilbert,
yeah.
you heard Doc.
Yeah, sure.
What do you think?
Yeah, if you look at the issue, you remember we're talking about the already challenges. And Doc is just restating some of the challenges we have. Talk about the deficit situation, the exchange rate and whatever. We know those problems and those challenges. And then to sort them out, what's the way forward? And then getting to IMF, can it put us on a leverage that we are able to harness our potential and get ourselves out of this situation and hit the road and put the economy where both NPC and NDC want the Ghanaian economy to get to. So the issue is that getting to IMF for this bailout, can it give us the potential and the capacity and the leverage, ignoring some issues regarding effectiveness, efficiencies within the institutions, that we know that there are some challenges within institutions. But looking at it as a package, can it give us the capacity and put us on a platform that we can build the economy and get it to where we want to go? Or take IMF out. What is the way out? How do we build it? How do we get to sort out most of these things and even these debt issues that we talk about? Now, regarding the conditionality, they are there. And that's why they give you the option. How do you solve this? How do you fix this? And how do you get our money back to us? They would not put it on the table and they will not impose it. You would commit yourself. Then they will just ensure they follow up and make sure it's done. So that it's going, IMF doesn't come to panic It's a win-win condition situation, but it depends on how the technical team we put together to get it done. And this is not going to be the first time we'll go there, and I don't think it will be the last time Ghana will go to IMF.
So, Doc, with the background you have given us, is there anything we can do about this?
Yes, we have to be disciplined. We have to be disciplined. IMF is coming to impose discipline. You see, let me give you a typical example of something that should worry Ghanaians. Right now, in 2014, the debt service that we have to pay on our debts, that's the service, is not the principal. It's about 8 billion cedis. Our wage bill for the public sector is 9 billion cedis. The question we have to ask ourselves is, can we go on borrowing money so that the debt service will very soon even be bigger than our wage bill? And how long can we do that? These are questions we must ask ourselves. I mean, you don't need IMF to tell you that it's not sustainable. So there are hard choices to make. So the level of borrowing must be restrained. No matter, there must be priorities. Because you want to build roads all the time, doesn't mean that you should build. You must have the resources to do it. Because if you are paying 8 billion for interest, and now you have to pay your workers 9 billion, I mean, is that sustainable? And your revenue is, say, 20 billion. It means that when you raise 20 billion, 17 billion is just going for wages and interest. How much can you put into the development? Roads, schools, health facilities, you name it. We must be realistic.
So as it stands, Doc, should we or should we not enter a deal with the IMF?
No, I mean, we don't forget that they suggested that we do that in February, and we said no. And now we have gone back to them and saying we need your help. So the question is not should we or shouldn't we. The government, in its own wisdom, has decided that now it needs their help. So they should deal with the realities.
I see. So is the IMF the only alternative for Ghana at this point?
Is that what?
Is the IMF the only alternative for Ghana at this point?
No, the only alternative for Ghana is for us to be disciplined and cut our coat according to our side. Irrespective of IMF, of anybody.
I see. So Doc, let's look at the press conference yesterday. Really, what was its objective from start? It was,
look at the title. It said the state of the Ghanaian economy. What are the implications for negotiations with IMF? What to expect? That is the title. Where are we? And at what position are we negotiating with them? And so, what are the things that constrain us? These are just objective facts. No judgment on whether it's good or bad. But the realities must be known. Because if the IMF must take into account all our relationships elsewhere, including MCC, including all our bilateral donors, so that it is consistent. The Chinese law, they ask, where are you with it?
Right.
Why are you spending all this money when you have another option? These issues will be dealt with.
I see, Doc. We'll leave it here. Thank you very much.
Thank
Dr.
you very
Anthony Akoto is with the NPP's former finance minister under the Kufuor administration. Gilbert Ibrahim still with me here. Gilbert.
Yeah.
So I was asking. Can we negotiate on these conditionalities?
Yeah, we definitely, when we go, we look at it. Remember that Dr. Akoto just made a comment that we need financial discipline and prudence. That is core at this moment. And
you see, that is something we have been speaking about. But now we are entering talks with the IMF.
But this is where I look at it in context within the IMF. The IMF obviously will reinforce this idea of discipline. Because whatever terms they go, discipline, financial discipline will be key into reducing waste and putting your resources into a very meaningful project that would impact the life of the people. So some of the conditionalities are such that it will reinforce this financial discipline and tax government, and so that we apply the resources prudently. Now, restraining on borrowing, that Doc mentioned, you see, something at this level, you realize that the social gap in terms of infrastructure is so wide that it will be difficult for any government in Ghana now to stay back and allow the system like that. So we have to break. We just have to know the concessionary loans and those that are for profit. And then we know how to apply them. Concessionary loans go into the social intervention. And then we look at viable projects that we can allow the private people to come in.
So Gilbert, do we have the luxury of saying no when we feel something won't work for us?
Yeah, you do an extrapolation and look into the future. What are the implications? If the implications will worsen the present condition, then you don't go for it.
And so if we say no, where do we turn to?
If we say no, that means that you call on us. At the time, government should just bite the bullet and call on the people that this time, these are the issues. And we need this sacrifice from you. And the sacrifice starts from the point of the leadership. People will understand. And look, when you package these things well and people see the intention and the output of it, some nations are there that a man, government said, this man we can't pay you, but just hold on, we'll go. And people will be committed to it. They won't take the salary, but they will give the service.
Gilbert, we'll leave it here for now. Thank you very much. I'm joined over the telephone also by Dr. John Gachi. He's an economist. He's also a senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast Business School. John,
hello.
So we've been talking about the IMF and Ghana's weight going into the talks with the IMF, the kind of conditionalities that could be attached to this and the implications it could have on the country and the economy, really, should we accept those conditionalities. What's your take on that?
Well, it depends on our understanding of IMF conditionality. My study about IMF conditionality over the years means that IMF, when they come to the table, they do identify some other things that we should have done prudently, that as a result of political expediency or as a result of other consideration, we have failed to do. And they want to let us know that if we want to move forward, then these things must be done, and they put it on the table that we ought to do that. That becomes a conditionality. Now, if those things are the right thing to be done, and we have not been able to do that over a period, and we are being forced to do that, that only led to some short-term difficulties, but medium to long-term, those things will inure to the benefit of the entire economy.
Away from that now, I'm just going to have you hold the line for a few seconds because I just want to share this with our viewers right now. Financial and banking experts are hoping the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana will keep the policy rate at 19% in response to recent instability in the forex markets, which largely spiked inflationary pressures. The MPC began a two-day policy meeting to deliberate on developments in the economy and determine the direction of the central bank's policy rate, which signals interest rate trends in the country. Today we would hear the announcement. We want to get into a conversation around this. If you just joined us, Dr. John Gachi is senior lecturer at University of Cape Coast Business School. Dr. Gachi, thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you.
What should we look forward to the policy rate being today, looking at trends in the economy?
Well, if you look at the conditions within the economy as compared to the conditions at the time that the last review was made, my conclusion would be that there should not be any expectation of a downward review or an upward review. Maintaining the policy rate at the current rate, for me, would be the most reflecting and prudent thing to do, because that will reflect the conditions surrounding the economy right now. Of course, there is downside risk to the economy as a result of some pressures from the currency, pressure from inflation, etc. But above all, that is a good signal as a result of the inflows that are coming to the economy. So putting all these things together, one will believe that maintaining the policy rate will be the right thing to do.
I see. Let's look at when it doesn't go that way. What could this mean for the economy?
For me, it will not mean any significant thing. Even if the policy rate maintained today, we still have a lot to do as an economy, because maintaining the policy rate will not reduce the lending rate, will not make access to credit, especially by small-scale businesses, less difficult. Those conditions will remain. In fact, even if the policy rate is reduced today, those conditions will not dramatically change. It will take time for us to put in other things in place in order to step down the difficulties like access to credit by private sector, especially SMEs and households in the financial sector. But it only defines, especially in the global sense, that there is stability in our economy. The conditions for investment in the country is good. But when you scale it down, there will not be any significant benefit that we are going to derive.
I see. And so hopes for business, what should business people who rely on the MPC rates, which signals lending rates like we have made clear in the course of our conversation, what should they hope? Should they look forward to lending rates getting better, getting tighter, or being at the status which it is at the moment?
Well, I think their expectation is that the policy rate should remain the same because there is a linear relationship between the lending rate and the policy rate. The policy rate is at the beginning of that linear relation. So some additions are made to that in order to arrive at the lending rate. So if the policy rate remains the same, to a large extent, it signals that there is no reason why the mainstream financial institution should increase the lending rate. And that is a joyful news for businesses. But as I maintain, that will not in any way mean that lending rates will prove any better as a result of what we are expecting.
Rightfully so. Like you mentioned, while we may not see any significant change in the monetary sector, it only shows in the rest of the economy that we are enjoying some form of stability. Let's look at the other sectors of the economy and how they could take advantage of this seeming stability the MPC or the policy rate could be signaling.
Well, the other sectors of the economy largely are affected by the policy rate if they access finances from the financial sector. But I think when we are talking about this, we need to understand it from a very large perspective, or broad perspective. When businesses are talking about the environment for doing business is not conducive, they are not only relating that to the interest rate, they are relating that to other factors which the monetary policy does not address. For example, the cost of doing business that comes from inefficiency in energy supply. That increases the cost of doing business with a high interest rate. So when businesses are talking about cost of doing business, they are not only referring to the interest rate, for which when the policy rate remains the same, it's going to trigger a downward situation in cost of doing business. We need to improve the energy sector to provide efficient energy at a relatively cheaper cost to businesses. And we need to allow the public sector that delivers some services to the private sector to become more efficient, timely, and accessible, so that that will increase efficiency of doing businesses. Then the businesses themselves should also know that automation and acceptance of or appreciation of ICT in the business processes also in the long term reduces their cost level and then make them more efficient. So we cannot relate the difficulty of the business environment only to monetary policy.
I see. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Gachi. Dr. John Gachi is senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast Business School. We've been looking into what the policy rate could be by the end of the day as the MPC announces its new policy rate, whether or not to be maintained, whichever way to go, what implication it could have on the rest of the economy and businesses in particular. But I'm totally grateful you stayed through. That'll be all for today. At midday, we'll discuss what the way forward is, what measures have been put in place now that we are told we are not getting any gas from Nigeria. Over what period is this going to be? We'll also talk about the bulk oil distribution companies and their debt recovery journey. We'll find out what the situation is at the moment. You don't want to miss that conversation at midday or News Today when I see you again. My name is Kemini Nyamani Amano. Many thanks for your company. Good morning.